And we're going down like this, and people were scared and people were sick, and the captain came on to reassure us by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about the turbulence, but I can assure you this will be our final approach. Now here's the way it works with cliches. I first became aware of this when I heard the following conversation between a fruit shop owner and a 5-year-old boy. The 5-year-old boy had said to the fruit shop owner, what are all those red berries? And he pointed to all these red berries. The answer was, son, they're not red berries, they're blackberries. They're only red because they're green. Now this is the sort of language that we're dealing with. Now here's the way it works. I decide I'm not going to tell you the truth because I can't afford to tell you the truth, or I don't want to tell you the truth, or I don't think you should know. So because I'm going to tell a lie, my brain says, now wait on, let's have some of these cliches that'll try to be as honest as we're going to lie. And I'll start popping some of the following statements if I'm going to lie to you. They include, well, to be perfectly honest. Now, how many times have you heard somebody say to you, look, to be perfectly honest, and you know here inside that they're not telling you the truth? They say things like, well, look, to be frank, meaning I haven't been frank up until now. Look, in all sincerity, and then they stick the boot into you. And the granddaddy of all these is with all due respect. Now, what does that mean? They've got no respect, have they? Now, with all due respect, there's a softness. If I said, for example, Derek, you're a fool, he might come and belt me, and I can't afford to take that chance. So now I use a softener. I say, Derek, let me say, with all due respect, mate, that you're a fool. Now he starts thinking, well, at least Allan respects me for being a fool. So I've used a softener to manipulate it. Now, if it wasn't for these cliches, most politicians would not have much to talk about, am I right? Because anywhere between 50% and 100% of a political speech can be cliches. Now, some of the favourites include one that means, I resent that question. The cliche is, with a smile, let me make one point perfectly clear. At this point in time is a good one, because that means 5 minutes from now it's not true anymore. It's only at this point in time. Obviously is a good one. Now, obviously means if you don't agree with me, you're a fool, and clearly covers the same thing. One that's a joiner, joins together irrelevant thoughts that don't have anything to do with each other. And having said that, let me say this. Yeah. There's a very clever one that goes this way. I would say this. Now that's good because you're not saying it. Therefore there's no liability attached to it. You never did say it. There's no promise you ever will, but you would. You say to a leading political figure with the government, what's your opinion of the opposition leader? You might get the following response. Well, that's a good point you've raised there, Allan. Let me make one point perfectly clear with respect to that statement. Having said that, I want to say this now and make it clear to all concerned so there's no misinterpretation of the facts of what's been stated here today. That obviously, as I understand it to be the case, and don't quote me as having said that, but I believe and always will believe, with all due respect to the man and the question you've raised, and that question is, why did you want to know this, correct? What do you got? Nothing! But it doesn't matter. 60 to 80% of your impact is the way you look and move. 20 to 30% is the way you sound. Provided you gesture and move, you can get away with almost anything these days. Here's a collection of some of the more popular cliches that you might hear.
In other words,
I want to tell you,
we did not repeat. Did not, but obviously.
Obviously, that goes without saying.
And I want to say this to you.
I think it's fair to say
There's nothing I can say.
Well, let me just say, no, that is not true at all.
I think you'll find that,
we still believe,
and I feel fairly confident,
and always will believe.
the reality is,
and I again say,
well, clearly the government's in breach of the policy.
But obviously.
we have, for the time being,
Considerable sympathy.
At this point of time.
We hope to reach a START agreement this year.
let me first put the position as concisely as possible.
I've got no doubt that we will have probably amongst the lowest rates of tax in the world without a consumption tax.
Goodness only knows, I can't understand it.
I don't think it's appropriate to speculate at this stage on that.
In other words,
I want to say no, it's not dead. Obviously, there's a desire to discuss this issue.
In other words,
Put it this way, I'll be around a long time, and I guess you'll be looking for me much more than even you're looking for me now.
Now that last man, Sir Joe, never used any of the cliches in talk language. He used fillers. Now a filler is where someone puts a microphone in front of you. You must open your mouth and some noise has got to come out before you say what you want to say. Remember, he had three favourite fillers. Remember what they were? My goodness gracious me. Don't you worry about that. And the last one was? You mark my words. Now, you'd say to Sir Joe, what do you think about the government? Oh, you mark my word, don't you worry about that. My goodness me, they're crooks! So he calls a spade and axe, hits you on the head with it. I'm going to show you now a collection of cliches that he made up himself. We couldn't understand it, maybe you can.
Made them move faster than a bee in a bottle. You mark my words, you mark my words. You can't chase two hares. You either leave one and lose the other. Everything's going ordinary, according to the way it ought to go as far as I'm concerned. I'm not interested in talking of that silly nonsense. Because they shoot themselves in the feet and they shoot their own ship. They don't like me, they hate me. Just to take one look at them, you could sum them up. I wouldn't have them to tie up my shoestring. Goodness me. Yeah, you haven't woken up yet. I've been there, I'm there now, I know. The point is, there's no need to go into that today. Go and jump into the lake. I do not accept any blame. I never intend to and never have to. You mark my words. Don't try and walk with a foot on each side of a barbed wire fence. It's pretty uncomfortable.
Everybody take your right hand and hold it in front like this. And hold it across on top of the left knee of the person beside you. The left knee. Now put it on the top of their knee. Rub it just back and forth a few times. Okay, cut. What you were doing then was using the ancient speaking tools of the hands. This is what we used to speak with before we learned to verbally speak. And you were placing it in an intimate zone. Now, there are certain places you can and can't touch people. Depends on your relationship. Depends on whether they're male or female. Let me demonstrate this. Can I ask you to come up here, please? Now, with a woman, for example, we know that studies show women touch each other from the hand to the point of the elbow is the prime touching zone, so they'll talk like this. The secondary touching zone's from there to there, and women can touch each other on the face. Okay, thank you. Come back up here, James. Oh. Yeah. So far you got your name right.
Spelling's a bit rough, though.
That's it, do you jack it up? That's a good boy. Okay. One thing we know about research with men, particularly English-speaking men, the only place you can touch them as a man is between the elbow and the shoulder. That's it. Now, if, for example, he was a friend of mine, I could say he's a friend of mine and I really like him. I can touch him there and there. I couldn't say he's a friend of mine and I really like him. I'm not allowed to do that. All right, now where do you touch somebody you've just met, a stranger, who you want to impress and get on with? Well, we know from studies that waiters who touch patrons between the elbow and the shoulder when they're explaining a wine menu or when they're explaining the food and asking how do they like the service get 5 to 10 times the tips of the waiters who don't touch at all. We know that librarians who ask the following question, you will have the book back on time, won't you? When they touched in this neutral touching zone from here to here, got 4 times the response rate than those who didn't touch at all. So this is a neutral touching zone. Okay, how do you spell milk before you go?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that.
He's not going. What about touching on top of the head? How do you feel when someone does this to you? Now, head touching is a very demeaning gesture, and people still do it to kids. There are only certain people who are allowed to touch us on the head in English-speaking society. Now, never touch Chinese on the top of the head. It's a religious insult. Have a look at this. You'll see people who can touch. Now, this man has the authority to touch. Touching on the head for blessing is a very ancient gesture. Now, it's something that we should avoid. Now, what happens when politicians start doing this sort of affair? They seem to be under the impression that everybody they touch will give them a vote. One touch, one vote. 2 touches on the one head, maybe you get 3 votes. But all politicians seem to do this everywhere. The more votes you want, the more you touch. And when you're really desperate for a vote, you can always go for the donkey vote. Something else we know about touching is this thing called a handshake. Hello? 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 You're allowed to touch on the hands when you meet somebody. Now, one thing you'll learn about hand touching is this. When men meet other men, hello there, single-hander, single-hander for this man, single-hander for this man. Now I see a woman I like. She gets a double-hander. Again, single. G'day, mate. Hello there. G'day, mate. Have a look at the screen. Here is somebody who has a reputation of being a ladies' man. Single-hander for Joe. Single-hander for this fella. Joe doesn't even want to know about that. Now, what's Bob Hawke when he meets Mr. Schultz in America? Single-handed. Now he meets his wife. Hello, darling, double-hander. Through the front door he comes, meets the woman in blue. She gets a double-hander. Another man who gets a single-hander, and he's not even looking at him, he's looking at the woman who gets a double-hander. Okay, what happens if you're a well-known person like royalty or politician? You're meeting the crowds, and all of a sudden someone's got you in a handshake and won't let you go. How do you get away? What sort of technique do you or don't you have? Here's a couple of very well-known identities. Let me show you what they do. Now, Andrew Peacock's never had a technique for getting away. He tries to break with his left hand. Watch this. No, she's not letting him go. You're staying right there, fella. So all he does is try to walk off and take her with him. Now, here is an expert in handshake release techniques. He's been locked in this one for about 90 seconds. Now, what Charles does, he changes the subject and pretends to pull his hand out and point over in the distance. Changes the subject, pulls the hand out, and, oh, it's over there. Now, in this next scene, this woman's got hold of Bob Hawke's coat-tail. Now, he knows he's trapped and she's not going to let him go. But he's got to move on. Now, notice the solid brick wall behind them. Now, someone has said, move on. Now, his first strategy is to try to push her forward to break the grip. Now, I want you to watch behind her as they come forward. Watch what she does as he pushes her. Here comes her left hand, got him. Now, right hand, got him in a lock. He tries to do a sudden right-hand turn. She does a right-hand turn with him and they both walk into the red brick wall. Now, it's also possible to learn someone's occupation through the style of handshake they've got. Can I ask you to come up here for a second, please? Thank you.
No problem.
For example, we found that research with the railways discovered they've got their own special handshake, as do the Sawmillers Association. Just last week we were talking with the Milk Marketing Board, the dairy farm. Give a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Now, most people ask questions, but most people don't ask the right sort of questions. Here is the way a typical interview might go at a party or a business function. What's your first name, please? Yvonne. Yvonne, what is it that you do?
I'm a receptionist.
Receptionist, uh-huh. And how long have you been a receptionist?
3 months.
3 months, huh? You like it?
Yeah, it's great.
Uh-huh. Think you might stay at it?
Yes.
Think you could stay where you are or move to somewhere else?
I have to stay where I am, yes.
Pretty good job then, is it?
Yes.
Great day, isn't it? Now, as humorous as that may seem, most people ask questions like that. They're called closed-ended questions, and the conversation goes nowhere. Now, closed-ended question either gives a yes or no answer, and then the conversation dies, or it gives a simple numerical answer, like how long have you been there? 3 months, then it dies. Or sometimes we tell them the answer and the question. We're one of the only countries that does that. We say, how you going? Good? How's your father? All right? Now, closed-ended questions make the conversation die, but even the experts ask closed-ended questions. Here's 2 interviews. The first interview has 6 closed-ended questions and the conversation dies. The second one has 13. Have a look at this. Even the professionals do it.
Hello.
Hello, is that you, Marianne?
Yep.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
You having a good time?
Yep.
You got any idea who this might be?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Johnny Young.
Hi, sweetheart. You having a nice day in Brizzy?
Yeah.
Great. And you'd like a request on Young Talent Time?
Yeah.
Now, in this interview, we're talking about turtle eggs. She breaks all the rules in this. Watch.
So there's egg on the end of the stick?
Yeah.
Right. And how many eggs will you find in a hole?
Or 40, sometimes 30.
Do you often dig for eggs and find that someone's been there first, like the dingoes?
Yeah.
Does that happen a lot?
Yeah.
How long do you boil them for?
Oh, it's half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah.
It's a long time. Do they come out hard or
Yeah,
soft?
Yeah. Soft.
Like a chicken egg?
No, soft. It's cooked.
So you just boil them. Would you eat them with anything or just straight?
Straight.
Do the turtles lay eggs all the year round on the beach here?
Yes.
Is there a time when they've been there too long and they're no good to eat?
No.
Can eat all the time till they hatch, can you? Okay, that'll probably do.
It's sad, but it's true. That poor fellow never had a chance to answer the questions because he had 13 closed-ended questions. The best type of questions to ask to get a conversation going are open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions start with how, in what way, or tell me about it. Okay, Yvonne, you're a receptionist, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, how did you get started as a receptionist?
How to get started? There's an opportunity going at the New Westgate complex, and I took it.
Yeah. And then you can see what's happened.
Yeah,
I've thrown in a bridge.
Yeah,
I've started with the question, how did you get started as a receptionist? Now, normally when you ask that question, you follow up with this type of very valuable movement. And you rub your hand on your chin. This encourages people to keep talking. And once they stop, you throw in a bridge. And the bridge can be, and then a very effective one is meaning. Now, if you can't think of anything to say, just say meaning, then it's their problem. Now, the good thing about questions, it gives you control of the conversation. Whoever is asking the questions is running and controlling the conversation. So what happens if someone's questioning you and they're controlling you and you don't want to do it, you want to get away from it? Well, let me show you how the professional question escapers handle it. Have a look at this. These are some of the techniques. Walk near a helicopter or a plane and pretend you can't hear. Very good technique. You just can't hear the embarrassing questions they're asking. Have laryngitis is good. Or you can just turn the other way and wave in the distance. He's waving here to fictitious people. Waving to his own security men. You can put it off till later.
Oh, I'll tell you next week. I'll tell you next week. All the best.
You can turn your back on them.
Oh, well, I mean, events have taken their course, haven't they? I think I've said all that I need to say over the past few days. Tell about it.
You can try and explain it and be submissive.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the end of the matter. I won't be responding to any further questions on the issue.
Read the subtitles, this is self-explanatory.
I don't mind how much I was taken. When you do start talking to me with 300, that's where it's forward, okay?
Try this.
How rude. How rude. Next question.
Remain the bar. Why should not?
Do you think you've been unfairly treated?
No, I don't think I've been unfairly treated at all. Did you read the statement?
Why did you do it, Mr. Brown?
Brown, why are you so angry about the press about
You silly little girl.
Mr. Brown, why are you so angry with the press about it?
I think you're a team of girls, that's why.
That was tough, but here's an example of blatant aggression.
Now wait a minute. Oh, no, you can't. Can you let me finish? Now, the rest of them want to hear that. Just contain yourself, will you? Good. Well, if you find it difficult, just go away, because the others want to hear. If you can't have your difficulty by yourself. Good. Okay.
The best way to handle being asked a question is ask back a question. So if someone says, tell me about such and such, you say, that's a good question. Why did you ask me that at this point in time? Nod your head and you've got the control. Now, everybody loves to go to parties. They're great fun. We have a good time. We meet interesting people. They're also a terrific place for you to check each other out. So that's why at parties you see lots of preening. That is, if she likes him and he likes her, the bodies start doing certain things. For example, in the case of a woman, if a woman likes you fellas, you get lots of hair touching. Now, there's a relationship between how much she likes you and how much she touches her hair. So if she's not touching her hair, maybe you're bombing out. Now, you've got to be careful you don't take one signal and say it's got a conclusive meaning. Like if she's trying to arrange her hair and you jump in with the wrong open-ended question, I mean, you're in trouble. Now, with men, you'll see preening as well, but it depends on how old they are as to how it looks. If they're, for example, under the age of 25, you'll see the both thumbs in the belt. How long have you been at this party, darling? Real subtle stuff. If they're over, say, 30 to 35, the older male, and if he's got a tie on, you'll see lots of this sort of thing happening. Now, if he's over 40, you don't see thumbs in the belt or ties, you see this one. Thumbs go on the side of the pants. They come up around the front, down, like this, and they stand there doing this. Let's now go to a party, see what we can see. There's two types of conversations you'll see here. First of all, there's the verbal conversation, what we say. Then there's the body language conversation, which adds up to 60 to 80% of what we actually feel and think. Now look at this. See what the man on the right's doing to this woman? He's wiping imaginary pieces of dust off her shoulder. This is a territorial gesture. He's claiming her as his property for the benefit of that other man. What he's saying is, back off, fella. Now notice they're all smiling, but look at the arms. A lot of aggression, a lot of hostility. She's holding a wine glass with two hands, and she's standing between them. She hasn't decided which way to go yet. Now we have bookends. Now the fellow in blue was sitting like this first. This other woman, this young girl, wants to get his attention. So she preens her hair and copies his body language. Smart move. She's also giving him a very good dose of the subtle shoe. Now the girlfriend in the middle gets a feeling that she's not doing so well. Very effective strategy. And this next scene, you'll see the man on the left has hooked his thumb in his belt. Look at that. The guy on the right is starting to use aggression signals. See the finger? Now look at the woman. She's positioned herself so she's now facing the guy on the left. She's almost cut the other guy out. Now the guy on the right gets a feeling he's bombing out, but he doesn't know quite how. The man on the left is making his moves. Here's a couple of crutch displays. They're done for the benefit of that woman. Now what's this? What's the subtle pruning signal? They're talking business. Hello, darling. Now this woman is feeling pretty cool about it. She's using the most confident and powerful position a woman can sit in. This is a good one for business women, I'll tell you that. Leg twine, steeple position, pinstripe suit. She's very powerful. She knows she's got these guys on toast. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, good hip action on the guy on the left. Now look at the woman in the middle's doing now. Look at this. Oh, she's really responding to that. Yeah, the guy on the right, he's almost behind her now. All he can do, because he's losing out, is use aggression signals. But look at the smile on their face. Watch his finger come out and threaten while he's smiling. Now, something else you'll see a lot of at parties is fellas wearing even. But we also know that a man with facial hair, a moustache or beard, outperforms the clean-shaven one in his ability to meet and be successful with women. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 10 stages of courtship. First 4 stages are, number 1 is eye contact. You meet someone's gaze, you hold it for a split second longer than is acceptable, sends a powerful signal. If that works, you go to stage 2, which is position. You get near enough to be able to go to stage 3, which is physical touch. Stage 4 is ask a leading question to test the water. Now you're going to meet Lee. Let me tell you about Lee. He was a quiet, introverted sort of guy, clean-shaven, 5'5". Never had much success with women at all. So the first thing we said to Lee was, grow a beard. Your chances go up twice just by putting the hair on your face. Now he grew a beard. It wasn't exactly what we had in mind. I've got to tell you that in advance. But nonetheless, it was a beard. Let me show you what happened. This is Lee. Stage 1, eye contact, achieved. Stage 2, position. This allows him to go to stage 3. Watch what he does. He's read the book, learned the rules, contact. Now, if you want to go to stage 3 of courtship with anybody you meet, get your hand out in front early. He holds it longer than is normally acceptable too. Everybody you meet at functions, get your hand out. You immediately get the access to stage 3 of courtship. Because if you don't shake hands, you've got to spend a bit of time figuring out how you're going to touch them without being formal. Now, you would have noticed that Lee was not in a good position. He was too far opposite. So his next strategy was to manoeuvre around to get beside her. Here's the way it went. Now he's going for stage 4. Notice where he's touching. Between the shoulder and the point of the elbow, the neutral touching zone. Now he's got to get that beard across and give her a good smell of it. He asked the open-ended question. Let's see what happens. The beard is working. Now what this means, fellas... Now I'm going to show you what happens if you speed up the courtship process. If you go too fast, or if you skip some of the stages. Now, if you skip some of the stages, they reckon you're fast. You're going to meet a woman... My mind's wandering, my tongue's following it. You're going to meet a man that practically every woman will identify with. Have a look at this. Every party has a fella that looks a bit like this. This is a man called, that's not him, a man called the Party Sleaze. This woman's about to meet him. Here he comes. He's got the compulsory white shoes and pants. He's got all the adornments that these guys wear. Now, he doesn't have a beard, but he does have a hairy chest. He's got the compulsory medallion. Now, hairy chests are only half as good as beards. He's now going for stage 1 eye contact, but she's not looking at him. That makes him impatient, so what do these guys do? Well, he skips stage 1, goes straight for position, which he does subtly. Stage 3, contact. Double hander. Now he goes for intimate touch. Now have a look at his hands. How many fellas have you seen talking to women with low-cut dresses who do this? This is the double grope position. Now he's got to get the hairy chest over so she can smell the sense in it. Here comes the question. What this shows, you might have a hairy chest, but it's not as good as a beard. Now, studies show that in the first 4 minutes of seeing you, people form up to 90% of their opinion about you. That is, when they lay eyes on you, they pull out a big rubber stamp, and they wait for 4 minutes, and then they stamp you on the forehead with the stamp as to who they think you are. And they may take a long time, if ever, to change their opinion. This is called stereotyping. People do this to us, and we do this to other people. Now, stereotyping is important for the movies because, see, in a 1-hour lifestyle movie, for example, if you didn't know exactly who each of the characters were by the way they looked, you wouldn't know how the movie ran. They couldn't tell the whole story in that 60-minute period. So stereotyping is what we do to people. Now, let me show you how this works. I'm going to get some people out of the audience. Can I ask you? Now, please give me a big hand as they come up. Can you come up here, please? Look at these 5 fellas. If you know any of them, I want you to forget you know them. Pretend you've never seen them before. Let's have a bit of a look at them now. Can I just ask you to undo your tie a little bit there, if you will, and just undo your top button. Now, let me say right now that these 5 men have no idea what's about to happen. Okay? Now, notice we have 5 standing in the Prince Charles position as well, hand behind the back. Okay, let's just have a look at this. We'll just undo this a bit more. Over your shoulder. Okay. Let me tell you what happens with a cowboy movie. Cowboy movie has 5 stereotypes to make it work. First of all, there's always a good guy. Tell me about the good guy.
White hat.
White hat. What else?
Clean
Clean shaven. Anything else? Yeah, he's got a good smile, he can sing. Clean clothes, always walks into town with both thumbs in his belt because the women love it, right? There's always a villain, otherwise you couldn't have a cowboy movie. Now to keep them apart, you've always got a sheriff. There's always a banker. I've never seen a cowboy movie that didn't have a town drunk. Now what I want you to do with these 5 men, by applause, is to cast them into their roles in the cowboy movie as you think they fit it. We're going to start by looking for the good guy. You ready? Is that the good guy? No. Is that the good guy? No. Is that the good guy? No. Is that the good guy? Yes. Congratulations. Come forward. Back there. Have you been the good guy, you'll get a copy of Talk Language because all good guys read those type of books. Okay. Now we're looking for the villain. You ready? Is this the villain? No. Is this the villain? Yes. Sorry to say. Can you just move along to the end there, Danny? If you will, if you come and stand here. Because you're the villain, you'll get a copy of a book I think all villains need, which is called Everything Men Know About Women. Truth of the matter? Absolutely nothing. Okay. Moving you guys. Come on, don't be bashful. 3 remaining positions. The sheriff, the banker, and the town drunk. Looking now for the banker. Is that the banker? Yes! Because you're the banker, you'll get a copy of Right Language by myself and Paul Dunn. Come and stand up the end here, if you wouldn't mind, please, as the banker. Make this next choice very carefully. This next choice could affect the self-image of one of these 2 men. For one of these men is the sheriff, and one is the town drunk. Looking now for the sheriff. Is that the sheriff? Yeah. Is that the sheriff? Yeah. Is that the town drunk? Sit down, fellas. You can keep your hats. Let's analyse some of the basic things that happened in that exercise. First of all, we know from studies when you have a clean-shaven face on a man or a woman, you've got the good guy. Now, again, this is because signals transmitted from the face are covered up by facial hair. The minute you put whiskers on a man's face, moustache or a beard, without exception, you've got the villain. Now, does that mean, then, for those of you who have moustaches and beards, you've got to rush home and shave it off? Yep. No, it doesn't mean that. What it means, you need to be aware of in the first 4 minutes of meeting someone new, that you will be stamped as the villain and treated that way unless you do something to compensate it. Such as smile, talk and touch between the shoulder and the elbow, which is the neutral zone. Say something, touch by handshaking. If you're introduced and you put your hands in your pocket and say nothing in the first 4 minutes, you've had it, you've been stereotyped. When you put glasses on someone, studies show that you are perceived as intelligent, studious, serious, trustworthy and reliable. So you've got the banker. Now, a simple strategy, if you need to look like that in a work environment, get glasses that have solid dark frames on them. That makes you look more intelligent, more studious. I'm not going to help you if you're the town drunk. Matter of fact, I better give the town drunk his special prize. Now, when you get grey hair on a man, or no hair if he's bald, those 2 body signals send high status. So you've got the sheriff. The minute you've got someone with their clothes that don't match, and all we did with the town drunk was put his tie over his shoulder, undo his belt, you've got the town drunk. That means if you go to meet anybody for the first time and your clothing doesn't match, it's not coloured right, or it's not neat, they're going to think, in effect, here comes the town drunk. We're going to now see how perceptive as a group you are. I'm going to ask you to rate and evaluate me. Now, you've all had Got 10 minutes tonight to have a good look at me? Let me ask you the following questions. I'd like your answers. Do you believe that I'm more introverted or more extroverted in personality? What do you think? Who thinks I'm more extroverted? Put your hand up. Okay. As a kid, did I come from a large city area or do I come from a small country town somewhere? What do you think? Who thinks small country town? What's your criteria for that?
The fact that you're extroverted.
The fact that I'm extroverted. Good clear mind, this fella, not all clubbed up with the facts. Who thinks I come from the city? Who thinks I come from a metropolitan area? Okay, what's your criteria for that?
You'd have to survive.
All right. Do I come from a large family, lots of kids, or a small family, just a couple of kids? Who thinks small family? Who thinks large family? What's your criteria, please, for large family?
Because you're extroverted.
Because I'm extroverted. I had to fight to get above the crowd. That makes sense, all right? Am I married or single? Now, single includes separated and divorced. What do you think?
Single.
Single? Who thinks I'm single? What's your criteria, please, for that?
No ring on your finger.
No ring, yeah. Anything else? What's that? I look happy. Okay. Whereabouts are you from? From Melbourne, I'm sorry?
From Melbourne.
I heard what you said, I'm just sorry. Who thinks I'm married? Who thinks I'm married? Okay, majority. What's your criteria for that?
Grey hair.
Grey hair. I'm working for a living, all right? If I was married, which the majority of you seem to think is the case, to what sort of person would you expect to find me married?
Blonde.
A woman. That was good, a woman. Assuming it was a woman, Mr. Town Drunk. Would you expect her to be more extroverted or more introverted? Introverted. Who thinks she's introverted? What's your criteria? Can't get a chance to get a word in. Opposites attract. She's introverted. Is she more blonde or more brunette and toning?
Blonde.
Who thinks she's blonde? Who thinks she's more darker colours, more brunette? Okay. She's shorter or taller generally than me? Who thinks she's shorter? She's a short, introverted brunette. Okay. If I was married to this short, introverted brunette, do we have any children? How many?
Two.
Two? Who thinks 2 or 3?
Two.
Okay. A high school or primary school? Bit of both?
That'd be good about it.
University. Okay. Primary school. My office environment, is it fast-paced or slow pace? Who thinks it's fast? What sort of location is it in? Central business. Who thinks a central business district? Who thinks somewhere remote on the beach or in the country? Nobody. Okay. Do I work long or short hours? Long hours. What sort of sports, hobbies and recreation do I have? None. Competitive squash, tennis, anything else? Golf, squash, tennis, some sort of a ball sport, is that roughly the idea? What sort of car? What sort of car do I drive? Porsche. Who thinks a BMW or Porsche or Jag? Some sort of imported European sporty car, okay. What colour? Red. Red or blue BMW style. Okay. How old am I roughly? Who thinks I'm 35 to 40? Put your hand up. Who thinks I'm 40 to 45? Anybody think I'm over 45? Anybody think I'm under 35? There was a free copy of body language going on there. Okay then, too late for that. Well, if you think I'm an extroverted fellow who came from the city as a kid, from a large family, lots of kids where I had to compete, I'm married to a short, introverted brunette. We have 2 to 3 children in primary school. I have a fast office environment. I work long hours. My office environment's in a central business district near the city. I play squash, tennis, or some type of a ball sport, which I get there in my blue or red BMW. I'm aged 40 to 40.